Happy Tuesday afternoon. Welcome to the weekly Digital Ministry Support Network live stream. My name is Lauren Lexon. I am the Communication Director at SCC, and I'm so excited to join you for today's episode. This is our weekly live stream where we provide training and tips on different parts of digital ministry, different strategies or maybe tools and training on different programs and software that will help you in your digital ministry work. Today we're going to talk about a gadget that I recently got that's become super helpful and integral in my daily workflow. That item is the Tourbox console. Let me make sure you can see that. That item is a graphics and video editing console that can actually be used for a lot of other things as well, which we're going to talk about. So I'm going to talk about how it can be used, how it can be programmed, and the best things about this console. And we're also going to talk about some other options on the market. There are other video and graphics editing consoles. I'll talk to you guys about why I chose this one. And I'll talk about some of the other options as well. And if you're looking for an item like this or feel like you can use an item like this, hopefully you'll get a lot of good information to help you figure out what will best fit your needs in this area. These items are a really great time saver. Like I said, they don't only work with editing video and graphics. So if you don't do some of that, stick around. You might find a good use for it as well in your workflow. A couple months ago, I was doing a really high volume of video and graphics editing, more than usual. And I was really feeling like there has to be a better way, right? There has to be a way to be able to speed up this workflow and make a better use of my time. And I knew that there were some consoles on the market, but they're pretty pricey. I wasn't sure exactly if it was worth it. So I started to look around a lot more, and I found the Tourbox. So at the end, I'll share with you some of the other options I came across when I was looking around. But in the meantime, I want to dive into what this Tourbox really is, what it does, and how to use it. So the first thing I want to do is I want to show you sort of how this setup works in a practical sense when it comes to workflow. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my camera view over here, and I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like over here on my desk. So I've got this Tourbox on my desk, and I've got my mouse over here, so you can see that. So you've got the mouse in the right hand, right? Because I'm right-handed. And so the Tourbox is going to be used in the non-dominant hand. So for me, that's my left hand, right? So I'm going to go ahead and use the Tourbox in my left hand and the mouse in my right. So of course, keyboard and mouse is your standard setup, but this is just an added piece on the left. So you'll see, one thing I do want to point out is that it is created to be used in the non-dominant hand, but at this time, that technically means the left hand because of the way they've set it up. So they're not yet catering to left-handed users to be able to use this in their right hand. Hopefully that will happen soon. Hopefully that's something that they're going to come out with as they're working on it. But right now you can see with the left hand, you can see these two buttons here work really well. The thumb, these you can reach easily with your pointer finger, and then you can reach this one here. These knobs and dials you can reach easily on the side. This maybe in the middle. You can just reach it all really easily with your left hand. So that being said, hopefully they do come up with a left-handed, right non-dominant hand version. But for right now, this is sort of what the setup looks like. So it's really quick being able to use these buttons in conjunction with the mouse as well. You may be wondering when you have keyboard shortcuts, for example, copy paste, you've got Command C, Command V, and that's quick. This can take that shortcut, and rather than two buttons in the middle of your keyboard, you can just keep your hands out to the side and just program one button to do that same thing and move different types of commands on this one console. So I have found that it's pretty convenient in that way. So that's what our setup looks like, right? We've got the two items, your mouse and your console, set up over here on the left. So now that we kind of have an idea of what it looks like, how we use it, I want to really take a deep dive into this. So I want to go ahead and show you how you set it up. So the first thing, when you get the console, you're going to go ahead and download the program. So this does have an application that runs on your computer all of the time that you're using it. So it's going to run in the background all of the time. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that. But before I do, there's one thing I also want to mention that I had neglected to before, and that's the fact that the Tourbox can be used with a desktop or a laptop. Any of those different types of computer workflows, it can work really easily because the Tourbox itself has a USB-C connection. So right here you've got a USB-C connection. The other side of this cable is just a regular USB. So that's all it takes, just like the mouse, right? It just has one USB on the end. You can just plug that into any computer you're using. So super easy to get up and running, super easy to take with you, and all that good stuff. So back to the program. So let me share with you a little bit about how this application looks, how you set it up, and all that good stuff. So let me go ahead and get this ready for you. So let's see if we can see that. Perfect. So this is the Tourbox website, right? So you've got the information about the Tourbox. Now, Tourbox console application, this is what you're going to want. So you're going to go over to downloads, which I do have in another tab here. And you're going to want to get either Mac or Windows. Works just as well for both. You're going to want to go ahead and download that application first before you go ahead and do anything. Now, that application on your computer looks like this. We're going to look a lot more in detail at this in a couple minutes, but this is what the application is going to look like open on your computer. So you have a lot of control over how you use this specific item, how you use this console through this application. So once you go ahead and download that console application, then you can go ahead and open it. So here I've got my Tourbox console open, right? We're up and running here. So I just want to show you a couple of things and kind of let you know how to use this, how to get it set up, and all that good stuff. So right now I'm using Ecamm, which we've given you a deep dive into in a previous episode. So Ecamm is highlighted. You'll see that gray line over Ecamm here, which means that's the preset I'm using right now. I don't have a whole lot of presets in Ecamm, but that main knob right there in the middle, which if you look to the bottom left of the screen, when I highlight the knob, it shows which part of the console you're currently editing the command for. So that knob right there in the middle is what I'm editing right here. So I can zoom out of what I'm looking at by turning the knob to the left, or if I turn the knob toward the right, then it can change the scene that I'm on. So we talked about that when we talked about Ecamm setting up scenes and what that meant. So I set it up so that the knob can change between scenes for me. It can go to the next scene and different things like that. So I don't have a whole lot of presets. One that I use quite a bit that I'll show you here is Final Cut Pro. So for Final Cut, I've created a couple different things. For the knob, Command minus or Command dash, you'll see it highlights right there, is zoom out, right? So it goes to the left and I have the zoom out command. And then I've got zoom in if I turn it the other way. So I just use the knob to zoom in on my timeline, make it bigger or smaller. All of the knobs and dials can press down as well. So that knob, if I press down on it, it'll delete whatever is selected. For the scroll, it moves the timeline pointer. When I scroll up and down on that scroll on the left side, it moves my timeline pointer without moving the timeline at all. It just moves where I'm at in my timeline. For the dial, that can move my timeline over back and forth, right? So then I can go, oh, I want to go to the end of the video really quick if it's a short video, and I'll just scroll over and it'll move that. It's a little bit faster than some of the other ways of using it. And so here I can add freeze frame with one of the other buttons. I can cut my frames or cut any selections that I have, any clips really easily and kind of organize that. I can cut it and then press the knob to delete it, just do some of those things quickly. I often edit the item properties, so I set one of the buttons to automatically open up the properties and then close it when I press it again. One of the buttons, the spacebar, just plays it or pauses it. And then there are a couple other things here. So These characters are from a preset that I downloaded, so that's why they're titled that way, which I will show you the presets in a minute. So those were set there. I left those as they were when I downloaded the preset. So that being said, I'm going to go back to show you what the presets look like. So it's kind of overwhelming to create an entire, when you first get it, to create an entire setup and preset for any app. You might not quite know how you want to use it yet, right? So one thing that's really cool about Tourbox is they've made available a bunch of presets. So let's say, for example, Final Cut Pro, you want to see how do other people use their Tourbox in Final Cut Pro. So I think this might be the one I downloaded, just the first one, but although that's July 2021, there was one of these that I downloaded and I went ahead and added it to my Tourbox application and it pre-populated all of the commands. So that way it'll already be set and it'll already have commands and you can play with it, see how it feels in the application, which buttons are most comfortable for you to do certain commands, and then see how that works. And then if you don't like it, you can just go back into the Tourbox application and just program a specific button to do something else. So these presets, if you download them, they're not always going to be like that. You can download it, but then you can change one or two buttons and leave everything else like the preset, for example. So there's a bunch for Final Cut Pro here, and you can download any of these. This is just how these users like to use their Tourbox in that specific application. So you can just use that as a starting point. And there's a lot of applications you'll see here. I like to use my Tourbox in Chrome. I like to use it in Illustrator, some of these others, but there's a lot of different applications that you'll find. So that's a really helpful thing to know about those presets, right? So I want to go back and tell you just really quickly how to add an app or how to add a preset. So if you're using a preset, or let's say you've downloaded a preset, or if you just want to add an app and set it all up yourself, these are two ways to do that. So I'm going to go back to my Tourbox right here, and you'll see right up here on the preset list, you'll see a couple different buttons. So let's say that you want to create a preset for Safari, right? Let's say you want to create a preset for Safari because you use that all the time and you want it to be a little bit faster. So the first thing you're going to do, get your Tourbox application open, of course, and then after that, go ahead and open Safari on your computer. So it'll detect the application once it's open. So let's click here on this plus sign and then create new preset. So these are some of the ones that are just, I guess, most common, or they're already preset into Tourbox. But if it's not one of these four applications, or three, Premiere, Lightroom, or Photoshop, you can go ahead and just name it whatever you want. So I'm going to name it Safari. So you'll create it, and then here's what happens. You'll see it comes up right here in your list of presets. But you'll notice it says no link. So that means that it's not going to work with anything until you do the next step. So you'll click on where it says no link. These are the applications on your computer that are open at the moment. So that's why you need to make sure Safari is open. So you'll go down here and say, I want to create a preset for Safari right now. That's the application I want to connect to the preset that I have named Safari. You'll click OK, and then you'll see this is totally empty. So if you do it this way, everything is empty. So let's say for the knob, I want to go to a different tab, or let's say I want to zoom in and out of my screen or something like that. You can just click here and do whatever keyboard command you want that button to do. So let's say you want it to zoom out, Command minus, and then you can name that zoom out. Let's say, for example, when you click that top button right there in the middle, let's say that you want it to open a new window. So you can do Command N, and that's going to open a new window. So you can say new window, and then you can save that. So you can do things like that, and even some smaller things that seem a little trivial, but like I mentioned, it is a little bit faster. If you do a lot of editing, maybe websites or content migration, anything like that, you can do, for example, Command C, which of course, as we know, is copy. and you can select something, press this one button, you can set the button right next to it to paste, and then that's a little quick shortcut if you use that a lot, right? So those are just a few, right? We did new window, you can do new tab, close window, close tab, anything like that. It's just a little bit quicker. Now, sometimes, like I said, if you're just creating it, you might not know exactly what you want to assign to these buttons. So you can download one of the presets that we looked at earlier. You're just going to go ahead and click on this, and then you're going to import your preset. So then it will populate and it will be all set up for you with commands for every button. So that's super helpful, right? So that's basically the gist of what Tourbox is, what Tourbox does, what you can do with it, and how it works. Now, like I mentioned, as long as it's open in the background, that black Tourbox application window, as long as that's open in the background, your computer is going to detect whatever you're working on, whatever application is open. There may be a 1 or 2 second delay, but whatever application is open at the front that you're currently working in, that's active, I should say, the Tourbox will switch to that preset and it will become active with whatever you want the buttons to do in that application, which is really helpful. Like I mentioned, video editing, graphics editing, that stuff is all really helpful with the Tourbox. And because of the quick way you can do copy, paste, open, close, windows and stuff, I have found it really helpful for data entry, content migration, all that stuff I mentioned too. So with the remainder of our time together, I want to talk to you about some of the succinct benefits that I have found from the Tourbox, why I chose this one, and then I'm going to show you some of the other options I came across and see if any of those are helpful to you. So there are 4 main things that come to mind when I think about why I chose the Tourbox. So the first thing, of course, it's not super cheap, but the Tourbox costs under $200. So as you saw with, or as we're going to see with some of the other items, they're going to be a little bit higher than that. So the Tourbox is around, I believe, $170. And so it's under $200. It's not super cheap again, but it is going to be the most affordable of the options we're going to look at. Another thing that I like about it is you can use it with any application. If the application is open on your computer, you can create a preset, assign the knobs and buttons to do whatever you want them to do when that application is open. Any keyboard shortcut you like to do, you can program one of the buttons to do it, and it'll be just one click to get there. So that's super helpful. I also like that it's fully customizable. None of the buttons have preset commands. So that's going to be important as we look at some of the other options. That really swayed me in the direction of the Tourbox because none of the buttons are already taken up by a command that I may not use but can't change. Another thing I like is that it's portable and easy to take. It's pretty small, as you saw, and it just has a USB-C to USB cable. So anytime I go somewhere and I know I'm going to be working on a project that's usually graphic in nature, that I know I'm going to be using this, it's going to be so much faster to use this. It's worth it just to pack this little thing with me and bring it. So now is the time I'm going to show you a couple of other options. Now, keep in mind that the prices can't be compared apples to apples to the Tourbox because the features are different. So like I mentioned on the Tourbox, the buttons are, none of them are preset to have a specific command, like your keyboard, for example. All those keys are going to do what they're going to do. You can't really set them to do anything else. Tourbox doesn't have that. So some of them do, which means it's not quite the exact same product. Just some of the different features are not quite the same. So I don't know that the prices can be compared exactly, but I'll give you an idea. So let's go ahead and see what our options are. So let's go to the next screen. So one of the options is Loupe Deck. That's really popular in the area of design, editing consoles. Loupe Deck is primarily compatible with Adobe Suite, so Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro for video editing. Loupe Deck really excels and was created really for that area. So let's see what a couple of their consoles look like. So as you can see, it looks kind of similar. There are some similarities to the Tourbox. you'll see that a couple of the buttons, most of the buttons actually, do have a preset command. So if you are going to be using it, perhaps specifically for Lightroom, specifically for Photoshop, it's got features that really well fit that application. So if you know you want to use it, some of these were created exactly for that. So you may just want to buy that one and not have to deal with all of the custom presets and all that stuff. That might be the best option for you. Loupe Deck does have a lot of different products. So this is another product used during streaming as well as editing and different things like that. So it's got some other customizable buttons and dials and different things here. Now these, as you can see, they are over $200, not too much more than Tourbox, about $100 more. But again, they are slightly different in nature and how they work. This is another one that kind of is set up a little bit differently. You'll see some of these preset buttons here, some of these customizable buttons and dials and different things like that. Although this one is going to be pricier at $550. So these are some of the different options. As you can see, some look like a keyboard. They have a lot of different products. Again, the prices are a little bit higher. So that's something to consider. Loupe Deck is a great option. There are people who love using Loupe Deck, and it fits their needs really well. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, the other option is called Monogram. Now, Monogram was originally called Palette Gear. So if you've ever heard of it, they are the same. They've now rebranded to become Monogram instead of Palette Gear. So these consoles are a little bit different in that they are very customizable in terms of how the hardware is actually set up. So let me show you what that means. So for example, this is one of their smaller consoles. As you can see, $400 for one of the smaller ones. So the reason I didn't go this direction is it's a lot more expensive for what you get, but it's pretty cool because each of these different square modules that you can see, they magnetize together and you can move them around in whatever configuration is helpful for you. So where that comes into play is that for people who are left-handed, like we talked about earlier, they can kind of maybe configure this in a way that they can use in their right hand if they want, and something like that. So it's a lot more customizable in terms of the actual layout of the hardware. So these are a couple sliders, buttons, knobs. They have some of those other things that can be fully customized as you want as well. They have some other items here in a photo and video item. And this one is going to be a little bit pricier at $500. Now this is their master console. This one is, again, even going to be pricier than that. I think this one is around, what does this one say? This one's going to be $800. So this one has a lot of different buttons and dials, but again, it's going to be a lot pricier, around $800. Now you can purchase each of these different, maybe the dials or buttons or sliders over here separately, but they add up if you want to get a few, and you're going to need to get the core as well. So each piece ranging between 100, 150. But again, adding those up into one main console can definitely get pricey. So it's definitely a great option. I think it would be very handy and convenient. And I'm not quite sure exactly how many apps it works with, but I know that it's a lot more customizable than the Loupe Deck. I know that it works with a lot of different applications. I'm not sure if it works with as many as the Tourbox, but I know that it does work with quite a few. So there you have it. That's all about a deep dive into the Tourbox, as well as a couple of other options if you're looking at a video or photo or graphics editing console, and perhaps one that can do some other things that will be helpful to you in other apps as well. So let us know, do you have a console or a module like this that you really like to use that wasn't covered in this training or tutorial? Definitely let us know. That's what this group is all about. We want to learn from one another, share what has worked for us, and see how we can improve and be better together. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time.